You're listening to Thursday Night Tailgate with Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazari, where NFL legends live on. Back to you, boys.
It's him. He's alive.
And now back in making his 7th appearance with us on Thursday Night Tailgate is former Pro Bowl linebacker E.J. Jr. Let me remind you about E.J.'s background. Played his college ball at the University of Alabama, where he was a first-team All-American and a member of their back-to-back national championship teams in 1978 and 79. He was a first-round draft pick, the 5th overall selection by the then St. Louis Cardinals back in 1981. He played linebacker in the league from 81 to 93 for the Cardinals, Dolphins, Bucks, and Seahawks. He was selected to the Pro Bowl in back-to-back years of 1984 and 85. And over the course of his career, he had 36.5 sacks, 12 interceptions, 7 fumble recoveries, and he scored 1 touchdown. In 2012, he was inducted into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame. And in 2017, he was inducted into our Guest Hall of Fame. And we are very excited. He is back with us again tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Good evening, EJ, Chris, and Bob. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Welcome back, E.
How are you doing, gentlemen? It's a pleasure and always a blessing to be on the show with you, too.
Thank you.
Wow, we appreciate you, EJ. So, EJ, we got to start our time with you tonight by getting your thoughts going back to the national championship game. Boy, this is twice now that Clemson has done it to your Alabama Crimson Tide. It's hard to imagine that it won't come down to both of those teams again next year. But what do you think? What's Alabama got to do to finally catch up with Clemson?
I think basically when you look at Alabama and Clemson, all you have to do is say Alabama and Alabama East, not to take anything away from Dabo and them, because most of Clemson staff came from Alabama. Dabo is an Alabama guy, so they have the same formula, same background, built the program pretty much the same way. The difference is, and this is just my personal opinion because I worked with Clemson's football camp this past year, going into the year and talking to Dabo, he just felt that they were going to be able to get Alabama this year because of some of the changes that they were going to make offensively. But I just think there's more of a family, faith, family, and football mentality there. And I think that's a slight difference because you had guys coming back this year to play with them, especially on that defensive line that could have gone to the NFL last year and came back and contributed to them making a difference. And I think it was a big factor putting pressure on the young Tua to make a difference in that game. And they just came out to play, and it showed. Alabama made mistakes and couldn't overcome those mistakes, and Clemson took advantage of it and continued to play good football.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that Bob and I were talking about with respect to the game. The surprising thing to us was how many points Clemson was able to put on the Alabama defense. I mean, you look at Clemson's defense, and you expected them to play well. To your point, their front is as good as any front, maybe ever in college football, and it's going to be interesting to see how many of them become first-round draft picks in their careers in the NFL. But I would not have guessed that anyone could put that many points on Alabama and beat them by that big of a spread. So do you think that's something, what do you think the key was in there? Being one of the greatest Alabama linebackers ever, what did you see from the Alabama defense that just wasn't able to keep up with Clemson's offense?
Well, first of all, you didn't have a lot of outside pressure. So when the young man got hurt the week before in the game versus Oklahoma, you lost part of your outside pass rush. I think there was coverages in the secondary. There was a lot of miscommunication, and they weren't able to make the plays on certain pass plays. I mean, when you get a receiver who's from Alabama, now this is one of their top receivers out of the state of Alabama, go to Clemson, and he basically produced the way that he did. That was a telltale sign. There was a lot of miscommunication going on in Alabama secondary. And Clemson just played well. When you don't make mistakes and they forced Tua to do some things that he didn't really want to do. And some people said they should have substituted Jalen in the second half. I don't think it would have made a difference. I think that team was focused. They came out to play. They hit Alabama in the mouth early, and they kept punching them until the game was over. So that's a big thing because Alabama didn't have to come from behind with a team like that before. And that's something that they're going to have to improve on, and I'm sure Coach Saban and staff is going to do some things. But you also got to understand, too, Alabama's coaching staff constantly has a turnover where you still see the same coaches at Clemson. They got the same group of guys who've been there. They may lose one or two, but you don't have a coordinator turnover every year. You don't have they've lost 4 coordinators, offensive coordinators in the last 4 years. They've lost, 2 defensive coordinators, or 3. Now that I'm thinking about 3 within the last 4 years. So the turnover is great as far as the coaching staff, but yet they still end up in that playoff system and still competing for the championship. So continuity is one of the things that you got to have. And the one constant is going to be Nick Saban. He's going to get guys who understand what he wants to do and what he wants to get done, and he's going to try to repeat. But when you got stability, that's a big difference, and it becomes a big factor after a while.
EJ, back to some happier memories. You were a part of a team that won back-to-back national championships. So what do you remember? What was it like going back to Tuscaloosa, winning a national championship for the first time, and then doing it again and being a repeat national championship the next year? What's it like on campus when you're bringing back that trophy?
Oh, it's always exciting. The only difference is we didn't get a chance to go to the president, go to the White House to celebrate with the presidents back then. But that first one, when you get that national championship win versus Penn State, we were kind of on pins and needles. We felt that we should have been undisputed number 1, and then we ended up sharing part of the UPI went with Southern Cal that year. But just the fact that we knew that we accomplished the goal that we should have had the year before, because in '77 we were 11-1, and we beat a good Ohio State team. But Notre Dame beat Texas, and they jumped from 5th to 1st. So we were definitely hungry going into '78, trying to be better. But then we're going into the '79 season, because we just celebrated our 40th anniversary of the '78 team. This year will be the 40th anniversary of the '79 team that was undefeated. It's a whole different team. You lose all your seniors, and you bring in freshmen who are not part of the system, but you got to indoctrinate them in a hurry and get them as part of the process to go out there and be successful. There was we had a little bit of time off, but then we were back at it. Spring practice, all-season conditioning program, and before you know it, it was August again. So you had the target on your back. And you had teams like Southern Cal, you had Notre Dame, you had the LSUs, the Auburns, the Nebraskas, all trying to vie for that national championship. So it wasn't going to be a picnic, and it wasn't going to be a cakewalk. So it was just focus, make sure you had your academics so you can have the guys come back that are going to be eligible, and you went to work. And you want to be better than that class before. So, and the '79 class was better than the '78 class because we didn't lose any games in '79.
5 questions for EJ.
It's always a pleasure to speak with you, EJ, and I want to take you back to your rookie year with the Cardinals. And when you came into the league as a first-round draft pick, EJ, it was a mixture on that team of some great veterans and some very good young players. I'm talking Jim Hart and Dan Deerdorf, Roger Worley, and, of course, Stump Mitchell and Otis Anderson. Had some great players there. Being a first-round draft pick, EJ, how receptive were the veterans to you as far as making the transition from college into the pros?
My first year in the pros was quite interesting because I was 2 weeks late coming to training camp due to a contract holdout. Mm-hmm. So the first week I get there, get to Lindenwood and get to the practice facilities. Everybody had been there for at least 9 days. We were getting ready for the first scrimmage against the Kansas City Chiefs up in Columbia. It was fun, but it was kind of tough because you didn't know what to expect. You didn't know how people were going to treat you. Of course, you had your rookie hazing, standing on the table singing your fight song. But I kind of took the fun out of it because I wanted to be one of the guys. I was going to do whatever it takes to make up lost time. I know I couldn't make up those practices that I missed, but I was going to buy into whatever they taught me. And I had great leadership teachers. I mean, the guys who actually I was supposed to be replacing Tim Carney, who was a heck of an inside linebacker, and Eric Williams. Eric was from Southern Cal. Tim was from Wisconsin. You had guys like Terry Steve on that offensive line. You had Deerdorf and those type Tom Banks and those kind of guys. They were a well knit group, who believed in making you a part of that. So every veteran took a rookie under his wing. And I remember Tim and Eric said, Rook, you're going to go with me. You're going to watch film with me. You're going to do what we're going to do. You're going to eat what we eat. And I'm like, okay. And until I saw that first bill when the linebackers went out. And the Friday before the first game, and I'm like, is it going to be this way for the rest of the No, we got 3 rookies on the team, so we'll rotate. But they took us under the wing, and they told us what the NFL was all about. And I remember going into the first week of the season. Technically, I got a chance to play a little bit, but they were going to name me the starter in the first game against the Miami Dolphins. And I kind of rebutted that to Coach Hannaford. I said, did I earn the starting job? He says, well, right now we want to name you the starter. And I'm like, if I didn't beat out Tim Carney for that starting inside backer job, you need to start him over me. And that won so much respect with those guys because, they've been doing it. They've been playing. And, he says, you got a chance to start. I'm like, I didn't win the job. If I don't win the job, you'll know when I'll win it because I'm not going to give it back. And, that's how the season started, going to the Dallas Cowboy game the next week. And Tim Carney pinches his nerve in his neck, and he's pretty much out for the season. And he looked at me and he said, Rook, this is your team. And that meant a lot, but at the same time, it was a lot of pressure. And I learned a lot from him. Steve Nelson, all those guys that I played with, they taught me how to be an NFL player and be grateful for the opportunity. Because he said the one thing he did tell me, he said, after your 4th or 5th year, they can always bring in somebody younger than you who can do it a lot better, a lot cheaper. So every day you come out, you play to the best of your ability. And of course, I threw it away a little bit in 1982 with the drug and alcohol issue, and got a chance to come back and play. And I really, really appreciated the opportunities and what the Cardinals did for me during that period of time to teach me how to be a pro instead of just, throwing my life away. So I was really blessed with some great leaders, great group of guys. When I look at the Roger Worleys, the Ken Greens, Carl Allen, Bob Pollard, those guys helped me become a good professional player, and I'm very grateful. But a lot of that also came from being trained at a great university like the University of Alabama, understanding what your role is, and when you accept that role and you buy into it, it's a lot easier to be a better player because they're going to make you better.
And EJ, 8 years in the Cardinals organization, 7 of them were in St. Louis before the move, and the Bidwell family, et cetera. I was just wondering about St. Louis as a sports town. Most people think of it, of course, and it probably always will be a baseball town. Even when the Rams went there, it was still always baseball. But how did you find St. Louis as a sports town and a place to live?
Oh, I love St. Louis. I really, when I look back at it, I wish I had just had gone ahead and just established major roots in St. Louis instead of just moving to Arizona because there was a lot of community ties, a lot of business ties, a lot of friends, family, fans who basically we were in the community a lot. I think we had the biggest respect out of all the teams when it came to just community service, and still do. I still get emails and support from guys, fans who love the game and miss the Cardinals. I think the Rams kind of were adopted, but I really wish the Cardinals could have stayed in St. Louis. I think it was a good sports town now that the hockey team is playing well as they always have. And had they built the dome for the football team, who knows what could have been, because that was a battle between Mayor Shamel and Bill Weller. That's politics. That's something that's above my pay grade. But things didn't work out. We moved to Arizona, and I was only there for 1 year before going to the Miami Dolphins. So, I currently have a house that's in Bolivar, Missouri. That's just north of Springfield. So I still have ties to Missouri. And still hope someday that I may be able to get a coaching job either with Missouri State or Mizzou, or, if there's another NFL team or XFL team, for which I'm understanding is the XFL team, because I did talk to people from the American Alliance of Football. but they couldn't get the stadium deal done because I think the XFL had basically made a commitment to them first. But it still wanted to give back to the young people in that community. Martin Matthews from the Matthew Dickey's Boys Club, and working with the Bushes over at Anheuser-Busch and doing some things with drugs and rehab and recruiting a lot of the schools when I was a coach at Southwest Baptist. There's still a lot of ties for me in St. Louis, and that will always be kind of like my second home.
EJ, just a couple more before we let you go. And as you mentioned, the XFL and the American Alliance of Football. What are your thoughts about both of those leagues? Is that something you think can be successful? And is there a real need to have a league like that where we can continue to develop young players that, for whatever reason, we're either close to getting on an NFL team, but maybe we're one of the last cuts, or guys that are trying to hang around the league, but maybe injuries or things of that nature have kept them away. Do you think they can be successful?
I think, actually, I really believe that the AAF is going to be very, very successful because of the model that they basically patterned it just like NFL Europe. I coached in NFL Europe for a couple of seasons. And one of the things that was missing when you got those developmental players getting a chance to play in NFL Europe, and guys who want to be coaches or referees or get in administration, that was basically a learning center for those people to get their foot in the door, to show what they're able to do. But you get a chance to enhance those guys who don't get a chance to play during the season. Well, the AAF is built very much like NFL Europe, except it's just in the United States. You don't have to go overseas and play 10 games and then come back. They do training camp in San Antonio, which they should be finishing up now because the season starts in about 2 weeks. They go back to their respective sites. They'll play games until June and have I don't know what they're going to call it. NFL Europe was World Bowl, and there's a Super Bowl. So they'll have some type of bowl for the championship game. But you got guys like Mike Singletary, you have Tim Lewis, you have the commissioner, which is Bill Polian. I think it's very stable. I think they have a good television backing. I think they got some people in administration that will do a good job in trying to maintain the direction and the developing of young players to give them maybe a second chance to get back into the NFL and develop their skills. So I think it's viable. College will do so much, but then there are those guys who basically might not have been ready to go into the NFL, or they don't have the skill level that means a little more season. This gives them an opportunity to refine their skills and try to compete again for another chance to add a shot at the NFL. And a lot of guys are not ready to let the game go, and that's a good thing because there's nothing in place. There's not a G League or anything like that right now for NFL football. You either go from college straight to the pros, and sometimes those guys who come out of college are not ready. They can play great in college, but the NFL is a whole different animal.
EJ, before we let you go, remind our listeners how they can stay up to date with all the great things you're doing, whether it's online or it's on social media.
Well, basically, I still do my little Twitter. I don't do too much. I'm still a spiritual base under _E. And hopefully if I get a coaching position within the next couple of weeks, I'll basically put that online. But I still do things on Facebook. And the one thing I'm always appreciative of you guys, 7 appearances, and I made the Hall of Fame already. Man, I wonder what I need to do to get into the College Hall of Fame or the NFL. Man, if I can only play 7 games and get into the Hall of Fame, I might be something good. But I'm still honored by the award that you all gave me in 2017, guys. I have it in my trophy room, and I'm very appreciative of anytime I can do the show. It's wonderful because you're 2 great young men who do a great job just educating everybody on the game. And if you want my pick for the Super Bowl, I'm going with the Rams.
There you go. That's the last thing I wanted to get is who you're going with. Good for you. You and the rest of America, we're all going for the Rams. We all became Rams fans on Sunday night. So, EJ, thank you so much. We're rooting for you to get to college. I mean, on top of that, we're rooting for you to get into the College Football Hall of Fame for sure. I can't believe that didn't happen this year. But as a voting member, you're on my ballot. You'll be on my ballot again next year. So hopefully we can get you in there.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen. You all have a blessed evening, and I'll continue to listen to you all throughout the year.
Thank you, EJ.
We appreciate you, EJ. Take care. All the best to you and your family.
All right, thank you.
That is the great EJ Jr. And Bob, you want to talk about a guy who not only had a great playing career, but the kids that have had the privilege of being coached by EJ, and I can't imagine why he's not coaching right now, but hopefully, like he said, one of the schools there in Missouri will be quick to pick him up. But a very knowledgeable guy from a playing standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, a guy who belongs in the College Football Hall of Fame. And hopefully we hear some really great news from him soon about him continuing his coaching career as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. If he gave any interest at all into coaching, I mean, he should be on the sideline somewhere. This guy was the perfect size linebacker, had the pedigree at Alabama, and then obviously a Pro Bowl linebacker at the NFL level. I don't know what else he has to do, but he should have his pick of jobs.
We've got our next guest, Leonard Wheeler, hanging on the line. We're going to get to Leonard on the other side of this